Jelly. Demba Jim Den the Jefa Rajamba Yandam Zobe Sanje Reba Dasha so them the Reshavan Jiden Kimba Givon Deva Kano Yu Lana Meba Hada Menamje Demba Sanje Jim Den Bejawa Shaja Doba Nasa Seno Judo Jasu Demba Jim Den the Jefa Rajamba Yandaba Zobe Ribada Shazun Demba de Reshavan Jiden Kimba Givon Kalo Juva Lana Meba Hada Menam Jetem Sanje Jimden de Bejawa Shaja to Bana Chas Shudo Jazo Sheo Kanse Kanya Zowo Jetam Sajen Dena Gomban Dembrone Manen Jiden de Na Joje Teze Keba Chona Sa Semo Nanda Kunga Chodo Suza Ishe Jazo Sejo Hombonda Chaban Jiden Suna Gombo Shonye Jona Sa Semo Senjo Demba Chemen Navish Sendon Rawa Jona Sa Semo Dije Chela Sebo Suma Nyame Chinchen Jona Sa Semo Gombo Tuje Shedem Tamje Kembe Demba Bo Sonam Yenden Jazu Dijin Shema Sa Semo Taben Deja Chewa Geveng Yazon Ledrejin Jido Tenum Shoju Shinjun Jona Sa Semo Trene Chewa Lanya Laba Tama Rabdo Ne Shinge Tama Yuden Gindin Maya Sa Semo Deva Chinya Mishes Gewa Binson Soba Che Range Sende Yudu Tene Sanje Demba Yin Karma Rabe Mamet Juma Seva Chivrata Melon Nota Jindam Dije Janam Dedrita Sonam Diye Tamje Seva Kobantum Ne Jinjen Radu Ne Gada Nata Shiva Labju Sibe Zonen Jovan Jovare Sho to the teacher, the blessed one gone beyond, the four destroyed, the completely perfect, fully awakened, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, no supreme guide of things to attain, teacher of gods and humans, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious one, the pure and the Shakya flame, like prostrate arms and to the teacher, the blessed one, the one gone beyond, the four destroyed, the completely perfected, fully awakened, perfect knowledge, which can come, Sugata, the Lord, supreme guidance to the teacher of gods and humans, to you, the completely fully awakened, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subduer, the Shajak, to the teacher, the blessed one, the one gone beyond, all this completely perfected, fully awakened, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, Lord, supreme guide of things to attain, teacher of gods and humans, to you, completely fully awakened, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subduer of the Shajak, when the supreme humans were born this, you placed out satisfied and said, I am supreme soul. To you, who are wise and most with the pure bodies, form supremely pure, the wisdom oceans, the golden mountain, fame that blazes in the three worlds, winner of the past, to you, with the supreme sun, face like spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. You are the maker, the three worlds of the incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the teacher having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you the one called lostness I prostrate. The purity which makes one free from attachment, the virtue which frees one from the lower realms, one path, sublime pure reality, to the Dharma which pacifies I prostrate. Those who are liberated and also show the path to liberation, wholly qualified with realization, who are devoted to moral precepts, to you the sublime community and virtual life. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only proper virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching. star, mirage, planet, illusion, a dream, flash of light, cloud, see condition things as such. Through this merit, essential is obtained by subdue the force and deliver emotional suffering, each is sickness. Sanje Jala Zoji Jonala Chaju Bado Dagin Jesoji Vetonam Je Dola Pinche Sanje Sanje Jala Zoji Jonala Chaju Bado Dagin Jesoji Vetonam Je Dola Pinche Sanje Sanje Jala Zoji Jonala Chaju Bado Dagin Jesoji Vetonam Je Dola Pinche Sanje May I quickly change the state of the Lord. I go for refuge until I imagine through the Buddha Dharma, through the Buddha practice and keeping. May I quickly change the state of the benefit of realization. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha Dharma, through the merit I create by practice and keeping. May I quickly attain the state of the benefit of realization. Gede Bumba Dayana, Gela Jibajano, Gede Bumba Malaysia, Pubisinia, Daniel Mayana, Dagi Yobakana, Dadan Dagi Shibejan, Nanzima Zime, Nanzima Zimeka, Yoba Mayende, Nanzima Zimba, Kanga Tom, Nanda Shirani Dama, Dadan Daginian Zena, Yawane, Tezebene Gavase, let on your Mosebetara, let on your Monamdole, Teta Junior, Tomani, Dagoshi. Damage Dembajo, Dawashi Damage Demba, Dawashi Damage Ketebo Kit, the Shashata Timoso, Kundo, do them with the children of the money, cannot do them with the children of the Dara, the teaching. Dagi Union, the Chetabu, the menu, one of the Union, you want to come in your 10 and Juba, you Gameba, the Kanga, you mobile. Ranu Taji, you mono, you motion on the number, Ranu Taji, you motion, you mobile. Do the medicine, do the medicine, you know, then you mock and I Sura Roda, the Cheda, she did the judge. Timok in the Yumata, Sura Redder about the Cheda Chedam, the Chisetra, the medium amount. You may give what about the Sonja, do what on them, do what you want. Kala dena do what Jadawaja, do not be doing, do what. Kala dena do Baranda Waja, do what they may do, the way you want the Shayu Bakana, you may do your woman, the Shadayu Bakana. Kedem Medata Waja, the Danzan, Donna Meda, you remember the budget. Kedem Medata Waja, the Danzan Bologna, Donna Meda, Powers, the Barge, Congress, the Mobile, the Tamjin, Russian. Tishin the Boyuman, Lobaya, the Yed, the Boyuman, Kama Chinja, Kama Chinja, Chinjalo the Jubala, Chinjalo the Mizet, the Chinjalo the Chinjalo the Chinjalo the Kushana, Chinjalo the Mizet, Kama Chinjalo, the Nijan, Chinjalo the Chitabu, Chinjalo the Gemin, the Chinjalo, Jakala, Yomo, Dada made the Shana, Dada Shana Jam in the Chinjalo, Jakala, Keten Dada, so Dada on the Tabat, the Washington. Dada so Dada Dame Mizame Dada Dumayu, the Shijo, Mariba, Mariga Vajana, the Dijala, Kedela, Kadara, Jiki, and Chitabu. Yavasuja, Kedela, and you Kadara, Jim and Chitabu. Mevasuja, Chichino, Shesha, Jusuma, Kangi, Mogotinjano, Woman, Yishinya, Payment, and chance. So we are on the page 45. Very bottom. So yeah. the Shavaka and the particular Buddhas born from the Buddha, Buddha born from the Bodhisattvas, Bodhisattvas born from three principal cause. Three principal cause. So within the three principal cause, the compassions, wisdom realizing emptiness, and enlightened mind. Among the three, the root of that is the compassion. So in this Chandrakirti's root text is, as compassion alone is accepted to be the seed of the perfect harvest of the Buddhahood, the water that nourishes it, and the fruit that is a long source of enjoyment, I will praise compassion at the start of all. Since compassion is the root of the awakening mind and non-dual awareness as well, Chandrakirti wrote as, so that means as compassion alone is accepted to be, and so on, with the intention of showing how compassion is primary among these three factors. The compassion alone is crucially important in the beginning to help produce perfect harvest of the Buddha. So compassion is seed of the Buddha. It is like the seed. It is like the seed to nourish the plant to ever higher states, to progress the plant, to progress the path of the Bodhisattvas. In the middle, it is like water. And finally, so at the enlightened, right? Finally, as a source of enjoyment by the trainees for a long time. So kind of unbroken lineage of the Buddha's teaching and the practitioners, all due to the compassion of the Buddha, right? Derived from all compassion of the Buddha. Trainees for a long time, it is accepted as a resembling the ripened fruit. Therefore, I, Chandrakirti, will praise compassion as opposed to the Shavaka, Pratigya Buddha, Bodhisattvas, or other two causes at the start of compassion, at the start of composing this treatise, at the start of composing this treatise. I will praise compassion at the start of all statements. It is not that compassion is praised at some later point in the text. It is the praise here itself by simply showing how it is important at the beginning as well as at the end, in the middle, when it comes to producing the fruit of the conqueror. So referring to the Buddha, how's the exclusionary modifier, alone. So alone means like example, like seed, water, and a ripened fruit as a separate example. In the what is referring to meaning is only the compassion. The compassion is compassion itself is the playing as a seed, playing as a fertilizer, and also is as a result. So alone indicates that unlike in the analogy of external crop, where what is crucial in the beginning, at the end, and in the middle are different. Right? In the context here, the compassion alone is crucial for the crop of conquerors at the beginning, at the end, as well in the middle. Here is how, like the seed, the compassion is crucial at the beginning. Those who great compassion feel pain at the suffering of other sentient beings. Now this is important, yeah. And Simjen Dungeji Dungewas feel pain at the suffering of others, other sentient beings. And the Chandrakirti, his own commentary also mentioned like that. Dungeji Dungewas. The compassion is kind of like, compassion is kind of, it's the, so it's kind of like, it's a pain, kind of sad or sense of concern, sense of worry by the suffering of sentient beings. So in this way, in the Sanskrit, use the term karuna. So karuna is literally no peace, right? So dengo, so they call, right? And that translated in Tibetan, Nyingje. I think Nyingje was not really, I feel like Nyingje is not literally translated from the Sanskrit. This term is already before the Buddha Dharma came to Tibet. So Tibetan has this term that we're using, Nyingje. So it's the principle of your heart, right? Something like that. So in English, they translate compassion, right? So I'm still not sure what is compassion. Has there any meaning, come and passion? So it's kind of look like here is not the joyfulness, compassion is not the excitement, right? It's the feel pain, the suffering of other sentient beings. So to help protect all suffering-ridden sentient beings, they generate the mind directed towards their welfare and contemplate. So in contemplating how sentient beings under the suffering of 12 links of dependent originations. So so later on you can see, so it's kind of like, is the pain, compassion, it's kind of like a pain by knowing or taking up or taking the responsible or caring for others, the suffering.
This is still not emotional.
Yeah, it's not really emotional. It's not emotional. The emotional, I think it's like subsequent the effect. Emotional is subsequent effect from the compassion, then the tearing and the kind of they cry and make sound. So these can be like, people can interpret that as emotional. So compassion not necessarily to be emotions. This sense of sad, sense of compassion, sense of empathy, this is always remain within the Bodhisattvas. Bodhisattva's mind is never separate from compassion. Now the problem is people can, people might think if this compassion is pain by the suffering of other sentient being. So that means the compassion itself is the suffering that's caused by others' suffering. So now, if you really think about, is it really suffering or pain? Now, this is very kind of, chocolate has the bitterness, but people enjoy it, right? And then, chili to make more tasty your food, or to improve the flavor of the food. People use chili, but in chili, when you taste it, there is some kind of what do you call? You cry. There's a tear for the chili, but people enjoy it. So this is like compassion. It's kind of pain, but that really brings encouragement in Bodhisattvas. That really purifies so many negative karmas, and that really brings the confidence, produce the confidence in the Bodhisattvas, and that really kind of expand their heart, including every sentient beings. So that really improves their knowledge and sense of responsibilities. So all comes from that pain. So it's not really kind of being sad all the time. It's every aspect is not pain. So some pain, right? So as the pain as the suffering of other sentient beings, so to help protect all written sentient beings, they generate the mind direct towards the welfare and contemplate. I will rescue all these sentient beings from the suffering and definitely join them to the Buddhahood. Seeing that this is the dependent on attaining Buddhahood themselves, or seeing that this is dependent on attaining Buddhahood themselves, they generate the mind focus on awakening with the thought, I will, by all possible means, attain Buddhahood for the sake of these sentient beings. This is how they generate. So because of that kind of, kind of seemingly pain, that kind of pain, right? And that really awakened the enlightened mind, right? Sake of all these sentient beings, recognizing that such pledge cannot be fulfilled if one forsake the altruistic deeds. So then what they do is, altruistic deed, including the non-dual wisdom, perfection of generosity, and so on. They then, definitely engage in the practice of all deeds, so that all deeds, including the 6 perfections. So it's kind of compassion is like a fuel that really kind of drive the Bodhisattva in practicing generosity, morality, and the patience, concentrations, and the wisdom, exercising the wisdom. So that makes Bodhisattvas very busy, right? That makes Bodhisattvas very knowledgeable. That makes Bodhisattvas very intelligent and wise. So all started from the pain that you take intentionally by caring for the suffering of other sentient beings. So it's not just like ordinary pain or suffering. Right? This is like a bitterness from the chocolate. Right? It's like a Mexican chili. So the professional generosity and so on, they definitely engage in the practice of all deeds, the 6 perfections, including specially cultivating. I think this always they use this kind of, actually this gnosis means the wisdom, right? Including specially the cultivating the wisdom. Therefore, the great compassion is the seed of all these attributes of the Buddhas. All the attributes is more like all the qualities of the Buddha, right? Is the seed of all qualities of the Buddha. I think this is also fuel like, it's playing like a role of fuel that really kind of function all 6 perfections, and that really produces the qualities of the Buddha. Therefore, the compassion seed with this understanding, the precious garden states. So Nagarjuna, precious garden, it says in the scripture of the great vehicle, so Mahayana teaching, in which are taught all the practice, stainless wisdom, the wisdom realizes emptiness, and so on, precede by compassions. So Nagarjuna also says, precede by compassion and generating wisdoms. So if this is the Mahayana teaching, what sane person would deride such teaching? Maybe there's some people at this time deprecating the Mahayana. Even that time, yeah. So, and also during the Asangas, after Nagarjuna, almost like 500 years after Nagarjuna's Asanga, during the Asanga, and his brother, the younger brother, Vasubandhu, at the beginning, he criticized the Mahayana. So if Mahayana teaches about wisdom realized, stainless wisdom, and generating compassions, so what sane person would deride such teaching? The stanzas above state how all the essential point of the Mahayana are encompassed within the three practice. The awakening mind preceded by compassion, and the Bodhisattva deed in the general. Bodhisattva deed in general, which are brought forth by the awakening mind. And in particular, the practice of the wisdom free from a stain of objectifications in terms of two extreme. So here they're saying, generally, what is the Mahayana path? So what is the Mahayana path? Kind of, the Bodhisattva or enlightened mind that derive from the great compassion and kind of derive from compassion, great compassions, and the engaging or practice in the six perfections is the Mahayana path. So in the general, out of compassion, generate the Bodhisattva. So motivated by the Bodhisattva and going on practicing the generosity, patience, morality, the concentration, the wisdom. These are the Mahayana path in general. Now, to make it more specific is kind of the wisdom realizing emptiness, and then particularly here, Chandrakirti, Prasangika school's point of view of the wisdom realizing emptiness. So, which is free from two extreme, superimpositions and annihilation. Right? Superimpositions mean things, things objectively existing or things intrinsically existing. Right? And that's the one of the superimposition. And annihilation means if things do not exist intrinsically, and things should not be, or things would be not existing in general. So that is annihilation. And kind of a disintegration of the phenomena, conditional phenomena, is discontinuum of the conditional phenomena. So that is also annihilation. So they're free from these two, annihilation and the superimposition. That that can be possible in the mind which realizing which has realized emptiness in the Prasangika school point of view. So the Mahayana path that is associated or underpinned with Prasangika school's wisdom realizing emptiness. Here's how. So here's how. Water, like water, the compassion is also crucial in the middle, even if seed of the compassion produce the sprout of awakening mind at the beginning. If it is not repeatedly moistened with water of compassion, later on, one will fail to gather the vast twofold collections that are cause for the fruit of the Buddhahood. So in earlier this mentioned about the two collections, collection of the wisdom and a collection of the merit, right? So twofold of the collection that are cause for the fruit of the Buddhahood. One will definitely actualize nirvana, either Shavaka or Pratika Buddha instead. Like simply by lacking compassion, your whole practice of generosity, practice of the patience, and the wisdom realizing emptiness, the concentrations, so all become the condition to attain the nirvana of Shavaka and Pratika Buddha instead. So it's, if there's the compassion that repeatedly kind of fertilizing, improving your practice of generosity and patience and morality, then these all become the six perfections that will produce or generate the Buddhahood. So this is why the compassion is playing. Compassion is like water or the fertilizers. If, however, it is repeatedly moistened with water of compassion, one will not end up in that situations. So its compassion is continuously progress, enhancing. So then this generosities, wisdom, six perfections all become the Mahayana path. So lacking compassion is the one that really kind of So in that case, the compassion is like water. Here's how, like the ripened fruit, the compassion is also crucial at the end. Even if one attained the compassion that is a conqueror's state. So it's kind of hypothetically, right? Hypothetically. Compassion also crucial at the end. Even if one attained the conqueror's state, if one lacks the ripened fruit of compassion, one will not become the source of that, sustains other sentient beings. So sustains other sentient beings means, so there is always a, Buddha Shakya means Buddha's teachings and the follower of the Buddha, there's continuously the kind of, continuity of the Buddha's follower and the practice is due to the compassion of the omniscient, compassion of the Buddha. Some masters, they extend that. So even those non-Buddhist religions, non-Buddhist kind of thought, positive, everything that the positive activities these are all kind of the core of that is the activities of the Buddha. Even in animals, some kind of dog or deers, tigers, when they generate some kind of positive activities. So these are all signs of the kind of, effect of the Buddha's blessing. So some master says, and then you say, how do you really explain that? The animals' positive activities are kind of derived from or caused by the Buddha's compassion. And some master says because every sentient being has the potential, their very nature of the mind is free from the stain, free from afflictive emotions. So there's always the possibility of generating an positive mind, positive feeling, positive thoughts, and positive actions.
Yes, this is a very important point. This thing about unconflicted mind, I always feel
What?
This is unconflicted mind, unconflicted. I think you used that term just now, if I'm not mistaken, unconflicted mind.
Oh, did I?
I thought you did. Maybe I'm imposing it, but I thought you used that term.
Does it make me look better?
Us human beings, we human beings are so full of conflicted mind. And I always thought one of the best definitions of Buddhahood that I personally relate to, is unconflicted mind. And there seems to be some very profound tie-in with compassion, because we get off on our own viewpoints, our own ideas we're right, someone else is wrong. And it seems like the implication is that if you have compassion, you don't carry conflicted mind. You don't carry a dualistic view of taking one side or the other. So I wondered if you can comment on this further.
Conflicted. What does that mean? Conflicted. What exact meaning of conflict?
Well, I'll give you an example, a good example.
I want the meanings. What is the definition of conflict?
It means you feel a polarity or opposite points of view. You hold opposite points of view. You feel you should do one thing, or one thing is appropriate, and yet you feel you have to take a position. You have to be right about something. There's one right point of view.
So I think this conflict becomes too general. So I don't think I have really said that. I don't really see in this, so far in the book, didn't really, there's any word conflicted.
Not inflicted, conflict. Like a conflict is a battle between two sides.
What you want me to say? Comment on what?
we were talking about compassion.
Huh?
And
We're talking about compassion.
Uh-huh.
And compassion seems to be the seed, it seems to me, to be the seed of an unconflicted state, a non-dualistic state.
the non-duality has to do with wisdom, and compassion has to do with feeling the pain of other sentient beings.
Oh, feeling the pain of sentient beings. The today is like temperatures is 98. so I'm a little bit. So my brain's becoming yogurt right now. So it's afflicting, it's not a conflicting. So I'm not sure that maybe you're saying the compassions, how compassion goes with non-dual kind of, the wisdom. Is your questions like that? Non-dual wisdom. So as I had mentioned earlier, the text mentioned compassions. So this here, the page 46 from the beginning, those with great compassion feel pain at the suffering of other sentient beings. This is kind of quite deep. So if you just leave as it is, so that means the compassion is suffering. And every sentient beings do not want suffering. So that includes the Bodhisattvas. They don't want suffering either. So now here, if the Bodhisattvas, every sentient beings, without exceptions, never want any suffering, even the slightest of the suffering. So keeping that in mind, and then this is deliberately kind of causing pain, right, through the contemplations, right, by having kind of, when you see the suffering of the other sentient beings, you are deliberately kind of making that pain in you. Does that mean they really want suffering? So then they says, there is the term pain, but it's not really pain like the pain that we do not want pain. So as I mentioned, there is the kind of in the chocolate, right? The chocolate has a bitter. It's not sweet, I said. It's not totally sweet. Has bitterness, right? Some vegetables, the bitterness, but people want to eat. People want to taste it. So they enjoy. So there's some kind of part. So why Bodhisattvas deliberately kind of making pain in their mind by kind of seeing the suffering of other sentient beings and through the contemplations, right? And then the question is, because this compassion, which has the pain that which has the pain. So because this compassion, this pain, kind of pain that is caused by suffering of others, is become this seed that really that force the Bodhisattvas, that moves the Bodhisattvas to practice further and practice generosity, patience, morality, concentration, and wisdom, right? And this kind of compassion is not only kind of like a seed, it also play like a fertilizers. And the further they want to improve, again, you need this kind of pain, this kind of suffering. So if you kind of fail to continuously generating or enhancing the compassion, then even the Bodhisattvas may end up in attaining the Hinayana nirvana, not the Buddha. So that's why the compassion is crucial, and it is the most the crucial condition or the cause for the Bodhisattvas continues to go on the path to attain enlightenment. And compassion not only just there, and it also the crucial at the end when you become the Buddha. Every qualities of the Buddha that possess in Buddha is due to the compassion. So Buddha's continuously kind of teaching, continuously guiding, continuously protecting the sentient beings, all kind of conditioned by the compassion. So this is the continuity of the teaching of the Buddha is due to compassion. Now, to some extent, some master says even the positive activities of even including animal is due to the compassion of the Buddha. And then some master they use the example, saying, within the non-Buddhist schools, that the first non-Buddhist school in India, the Samkhya school. So many of those says the first teacher, Changsung Sekyap, right? So is the emanation of Manjushri. So Manjushri taught this Samkhya school. From the Samkhya school, all these non-Buddhist schools, right? So when there is some kind of benefit, there's some kind of that's continuously bringing some benefit and happiness and awakening the afflictive emotions, any kind of method, techniques, instructions, right? Although this is not the path, the right path to enlightenment or liberation, but still that due to the compassion. So anyway, kind of the compassion, see how it is crucial because it is played from the beginning. This is like the seed. During the Bodhisattva's path, right? This is like water, the fertilizers. And at the end, the Buddha, like every second, Buddha never kind of take side from the sentient beings, right? So he never kind of, turn, turn out from the sentient beings. So that because of the compassion that really kind of, in the center of the Buddha's, the omniscient. Yeah, so are you getting it? So the Chandrakirti is saying that compassion is so important. This is why he first kind of before he started writing Chandrakirti, the Madhyamika treatise, first he wanted to praise the compassion, not Arhat, Sharvaka, Pratigya Buddha, Bodhisattvas, Buddha. So he wanted to make the salutation to the compassion. So he even says that when he kind of used the name, the term that given to the compassion, like Jomden Demas, the blessing mother, right? Because this compassion is making Bodhisattvas, right? So I think compassion is the one the Bodhisattvas make tireless, compassion is the one that Bodhisattvas so brave, right, courageous. Compassion is the one that Bodhisattvas so knowledgeable and intelligent. So that this is like it's kind of like a fuel of vehicle, the cars. Without the fuel, when the fuel's there, when you start, then it's ready to go. Right? So compassion here just Pratika Buddhas and Shavakas is the result of the teaching of the Buddha. Buddhas themselves are born from the Bodhisattvas. So Bodhisattvas caused by the three conditions: compassion, wisdom realizing emptiness, awakening mind, or enlightened mind. And among the three, our enlightened mind, wisdom realizing emptiness, compassion. Now compassion is the root of the three three root factors.
Right? How would you distinguish awakening mind from the other two? How would you distinguish them from wisdom, realizing emptiness, and compassion? Because it's identified as a completely separate factor. So how is that something to be cultivated, or is that a byproduct of moistening with compassion?
I think you just read that lines. Say first is generate the mind direct towards the welfare and contemplate. So that's compassion. Then says, I will rescue all these sentient beings from suffering and definitely join them to the Buddhahood. So this is the awakening mind. I'm going to lead every sentient being to attain the Buddhahood. So why Bodhisattva was so kind of enthusiastic to bringing every sentient beings to the state of Buddhahood? Because their compassion is the one that moved them to do. I have to. Right? So out of compassions, they generate the enlightened mind. So generating enlightened mind means aspiring to attain the Buddhahood. It's not like I want to be president, I want to be director, I want to be professor. Right? So simply because I like presidencies, I like kind of professors. So Bodhisattvas wanting to attain the Buddhahood, not because, Buddha is something special, is so good, so I want to be that. No. Because they generate the compassion moved their mind to the compassion is the one that makes them see this is the only path, this is the only reason, this is the only condition that can help countless sentient beings without exceptions. Right? Only Buddha can do free sentient beings from the suffering. So this is why they want to attain the Buddhahood. They focus on the Buddhahood due to the compassion. Yeah. So I think in the business field and in this and the studies. And some people have from the beginning, when they go to college and the school and the university. So some they have the motivation, their strong intention, the aspirations. So I will use this knowledge to make these things for benefit to many people. And some people go on a business. I make money, then I will make this happen. And how say it? Some people just kind of, I want to be a doctor because there's a more a higher salary. I want to be professors so I can sleep more. so I have enough time to sleep. so yeah, it's not because the kind of one's own sake. It's the sake of all sentient beings. So then they see this is the only way. So, because the compassions because when you free sentient beings from the suffering, how can you free sentient beings? Can Bodhisattvas, as Bodhisattvas sees making money is freeing sentient beings suffering? No. Do Bodhisattvas sees cooking can help free sentient beings? No. Do Bodhisattvas do gymnastic, right? Making muscle can sentient beings? No. Right. So attaining the Buddhahood, omniscient, is the only condition that can free every sentient beings. So that's why out of compassions, due to the compassions, moved by compassions, and then aspire to attaining the Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. So that is the enlightened mind, awakening mind, or the Bodhisattva. Yeah. So the compassion is like, this is like the main cause of awakening mind. Now, once you generate the enlightened mind or the Bodhisattva, then what you have to do is, now I have to perfect my practice with generosity, patience, morality, concentrations. So perfect means to, to make it pure and perfect, to make the perfect, right? To make my generosity perfect and free from all stain, right? Free from afflictive emotions, free from stain of the afflictive emotions. So, what is required for perfecting the generosity? What is the requirement for freeing the practice with generosity from misconceptions and free from the stain of the afflictive emotions? Then this is wisdom realizing emptiness. Without wisdom realizing emptiness, right? You can be but you can be very seriously and emotionally so enthusiastic in giving as a practice the generosity and the patience, but the emotional is not really helps you to make it perfect. So what you need is the wisdom realizing emptiness, the wisdom. So the wisdom can help perfecting the generosity. Wisdom can help perfecting the morality, concentrations, and effort. Right. So this is why the three principles, right? Compassion, awakening mind, and wisdom realizing emptiness. So yeah, continuously, yeah. So yeah, let me read from this. Here's how the ripened fruit, compassion is also crucial at the end. Even if one attained the concrete state, if one lacks the ripened fruit of compassion, lacks the compassion, is hypothetically right. So it's impossible. One will not become the source of that sustains other sentient beings. So continuously protecting sentient beings is not possible. And then here you use the proliferations of the uninterrupted lineage of Arya Shavaka, Arya Pratika Buddha, Arya Bodhisattvas. One following another in continuous lineage will not come about. So Gyum Michevas. So there's almost like, so there's this kind of, when Buddha passed away, after maybe Nagarjuna was born 400 years after Buddha passed away, right? Turning Nirvana. So within the 400 years, during the 400 years, and just before Nagarjuna born, so Mahayana, the teachings is already, deteriorating, right? So, but there is still Mahayana practitioners, Tantrayana practitioners, Nagarjuna's first teacher, the Guru, right? So, Tujin Saraha, his name is Saraha. So Saraha. So this kind of not continuously, the continuation is always there, the continuations of the Mahayana teachings, Mahayana practitioners, but it can be, within the period of time, sometimes it it will go down or deteriorate for for the period of time. Again, it's come back, regain this. Regain or yeah. So it's the not. I think there's no discontinue. Is no I'm trying to find the word for that. Revive, yeah, revive, not discontinue, is due to Buddha's compassion, right? So it can be kind of start to disintegrating, right, due to people's interests, when people change their cultures, the interest, and that effect on the Buddha Dharma, the Mahayana teaching. But there is no discontinue. There's no, there's always possible reviving of that. Is one who is holding that is what is the blessed, what is the force. So then Chandrakirti want to say this is the compassion of the Buddha. Right? So continues the lineage will also not come about. Yeah. If compassion is perpetually present on the resultant ground, only the contrary situation will come about. If the compassion is not there, so it's impossible. Buddha's lacking compassion is impossible. Right? Now, it's the hypothetical. If Buddha lacks compassion, right? So then this, so therefore, through explicating the meaning of these 4 lines, that meaning of 4 lines, the precious garlands, referring to precious garland, 4 line, 1, 2, 3, 4, meaning of 4 lines. That being a compassion alone is accepted to be, we should gain firm convictions that this line demonstrates the following. If I aspire to follow the great vehicle, I must first become moved by the power of compassion. On that basis, I must then generate awakening mind from the depth of my heart. Having generated such mind, like awakening mind, I must without doubt engage in the Bodhisattva's deed in general, and particularly to penetrate the depth of the profound view of the emptiness. In this way, I must train in this. So Bodhisattva's deeds are 6 perfections. So without wisdom, this is not possible. Now here's the paying homage to great compassion by differentiating its characteristics. So this has 2 parts: paying homage to the compassion that takes sentient beings as object. That's one compassion. And paying homage to the compassion that takes phenomenal reality. That's the second. And takes no reference as its object is the third compassion. Right. So then you can also think that way. Great compassions, right, without associated with wisdom realizing emptiness. So right, the compassion without wisdom realizing emptiness. So that means without wisdom realizing emptiness. So compassion, what compassion is seeing sentient being is objective sentient beings, right? Is intrinsic sentient beings, right? And the compassion that is not only seeing sentient beings and cycling in samsara through the twin length and bend originations, and then the compassion that sees the sentient beings constantly, right? Constantly, moved by misconceptions and constantly moved by misconceptions, and they and then generating positive karma or negative karma. So they instantly kind of move or shifted or carry away by the misconceptions. So that the second compassion is compassion that takes phenomenal reality. So no reference is object means the compassion that sees sentient beings like illusion like sentient beings, mirage like sentient beings, a reflection of the image like sentient beings. So 3 kind of compassions. Now here they're talking about paying homage to the compassion that takes sentient beings as its object. Now first compassion. So then Chandrakirti in the root text says, first with the thought, I am. They cling to self. Then with the thought, mind, they become attached to things. Like buckets on the water wheel, they turn without control. I bow to the compassion that cares for such suffering beings. So, so this is like, without any characterizing of the sentient beings. Like, they don't characterize sentient being. It is impermanent, or it is absence of intrinsic existence. Simply by kind of knowing just sentient being, and not this sentient beings are when they see the body, I am. When they feel something, I am. When they when they have any kind of like out of attachment, oh, I like it. Or when they generate angers, I don't like it. I. So you see, you imposes the I on any every 5 aggregates, right? Having seen the body imposes the I on the body. Having experienced the feeling, you imposes the I on the body, I on the feeling, and having generate anger and attachments. Again, there's imposes the I with that, right? And then when you are looking at something, oh, I am seeing it, I am smelling it, I'm hearing the music, right? I'm having kind of taste of the food, right? So imposing the I. So first they go and cling to the self. So conceptually, constructing the self or imposing the self with every 5 aggregates, and we cling to that imposed I, right? That self that we impose, that we mentally construct, and we cling to it, and we start to think this objectively exists. This exists by itself, right? This self and this body is like, cow and cow's owner, right? So, like this body is different from the table, me is different from my body. So this is mine. This belongs to me. As this body solidly exists, me too, by itself, solidly exists. So then, this is how the sentient beings cling to the self. Right? They're grasping on self. By grasping on the self, what it causes, what it makes you is then it makes you think. When you see color of my color, when you see the sound of my sound, my taste, my tactilities, right? So that very solid, independent I is now not only not only owns this 5 aggregate, it owns the 5 sensual object, my body, right? So they become attached to things, right? So now this sentient beings constantly, driven by the consciousness, untamed consciousness, the consciousness that is, overpowered by this grasping self and grasping mind. The consciousness is controlled and hijacked by these 2 misconceptions, me and my, and sentient beings going under this untamed mind. So, and then either the Chandrakirti says, so with that, we can imagine sentient beings like the buckets on the water wheel has no control of itself, right? So no control of itself. They turn without control. I bow to the compassion that cares for such suffering beings. So now this saying, he was kind of,
So previously we said compassion is the root of all, root of the Shavaka, Pratika Buddha, the Bodhisattvas. And compassion is also root of the Mahayanas, Bodhisattvas, vision realizing emptiness. And compassion is also root of the awakening minds, the Bodhisattvas' awakening mind. And now, this compassion, how do you really practice this compassion? How do I generate this kind of compassion? So, saying now, this line is this kind of here. First with the thought, I am, they cling to self. Then with the thought, mind, that becomes attached to things, like bucket of the water wheel. They turn without control. I bow to the compassions that cares for the such suffering beings. So Chandrakirti is saying now, how do you really generate the Buddhist compassion is through contemplating on the 12 links and dependent organizations. So 12 sentient beings, out of ignorance, they commit the karma, and they commit the karma. So once they commit the karma, and the habit or the imprints that live on the continuation of the consciousness. So now the consciousness is so much impact and influenced by this karma and ignorance. So, so this consciousness carries the sentient beings, right? And where it carries this consciousness with karma and ignorance, the sentient beings carries to the next life, and what in the next life, and then you start build kind of once you interest in a new life, and then gradually you are developing the sense faculties. Once you develop the sense faculty, and you have start to contact, you are engaging on 5 sensual objects. Then without someone, right, your father or mother, right, without teaching you, you naturally generates the feeling, and that generates the craving. So these are not really human culture has taught it to you, or no mother, no father, no teacher taught you. So you have this habit, right? When you taste something and you start, kind of, there is attachment, there's a craving. And the craving that increases, right, more in increasing, and then it becomes not only crave for the feeling, it also crave for the substance that generates that feeling. And we are looking for the substance, cosmic condition, that we assume this will make me happy, right? So, and then more and more we are so into this and the craving, and again that fertilizing, right, another karma to go to next next life again. So this is how we're preparing ourselves, right? So continuously we're seeking for something. We're driven by the anger and attachment, and then this kind of unsubdued or untamed, the wild mind, because the wild mind is dominated by the ignorance and the karma. So when we contemplate on this, this is how the sentient beings, including myself, and we are in the same situations. So that's supposed to be generating the compassion. And Chandrakirti, and the another kind of way of imagining sentient beings is, since the identity view, the grasping at I, give rise to the identity view grasping at mind. The first, that is prior to the identity view, manifestly clinging to mind. The first means clinging to self. Right? So the identity view grasping at I, assuming a self that does not possess intrinsic existing as existing by virtue of an of intrinsic nature. Something that is not objectively exists, something that is not exist by itself, and you assume, right? You believe that this exists by itself. So the Nagarjuna chapter 8, analyzing an action and agent, right? The language kind of make the pictures. So the potter is going to perform making a pot, right? So the eater is going to eat. Smeller is going to smell. So the language create the create the picture to you that, oh, the agent exists, right? Prior to the action. Yeah, manifestly, they're referring, assuming the self does not possess intrinsic existing and the existing by virtue of an intrinsic nature, manifestly cling to the referent of the thought, I am as real. So this is always confusing, is real. So it's kind of like implying the self is not real, unreal. So I think this is really kind of, we have in English language so far we haven't really set the rules, what words, what terms that we needed to use in order to articulate the meaning in here. So there's kind of little bit kind of mix up. So I am as rails, so that intrinsic I as a rail. Then in the relation to things other than the object of I, so grasping a body, I, and so on, with the thought mind. So they become attached. The grasping in, thought mind, they become attached. The grasping in terms of this mind, thus like a bucket on a water wheel in a motion or spinning in a circle. Sentient beings turn in the cycle without control. And it is to the compassion that care for such suffering beings that I bow here. This then is the meaning of the paying homage to the compassion that takes sentient beings as object. So this first compassion is without kind of analyzing sentient beings as absence of intrinsic existence, just normal way, kind of conventional sentient beings. In what way do transmigrating beings resemble the perpetual motions? Right? Perpetual motions, waterway. Here are the two things. I think this is a very good example. Sentient beings and perpetually moving water wheel are the basis of compassion, namely the analogy and what resemble it. Here are 6 aspects to the analogies. Now, first, being tied by the rope and so on, that illustrate the future that are similar to the water wheel. Number 1, the first example here, aspect is that this constrained world of sentient beings is bound very tightly by the rope of karma and afflictions. So the water wheel and the bucket is tied by the rope, like you said, rope of karma and afflictions, like a water wheel bound by the rope. The pronoun this in the praise of the constrained world should be applied to the remaining 5 characteristics. And this world of sentient beings is propelled by the consciousness, which is analogy to the operator who sets the water wheel in motion. Number 3, it rotates from depth of the great river of cyclic existence, from the peak of the existence down to the hell. I don't know how to spell this. Huh?
I think of VC.
VC, yeah. So, not member, yeah. With no interval at all. Number 4, it travels downward. So I think this Chandrakirti is imagining. Maybe this is not really necessary for us because we don't see much the water wheel. So at his time, during his time, so water wheel is something important, right? So if you want to get the water, you have to go to the water wheel to get the, yeah? So kind of pull the buckets. First you throw the buckets. Maybe he's seeing the sentient beings like this bucket. So here the number 1, this is very important. The tightly kind of tightened by the rope of karma and afflictions. Sentient beings are under the hold of this karma and afflictions. And the propel, Rama. First, tightened by the karma and afflictions. And the second is sentient beings are controlled by the, sentient beings as controlled by unsubdued mind, right? So sentient beings are under the control, or sentient beings are driven by unsubdued mind. This is the second. The third is the rope of the karma and afflictions and unsubdued mind. So how this kind of unsubdued mind is propelling the sentient beings. So where it is throwing the sentient beings, right? Then says, like a bucket from the top to the down, right? Throwing. The sentient beings, under the holds of the karma and afflictions, they can go up sometime, right? With strong effort, very kind of, in this very strong effort, they can, they can, they can lead themselves to maybe a form realm and formless realms. Even that, this is still cycle existence. Samsara is a heaven or pure realms, something like that. But so this is all like, the God realms, the form realm, the formless realms. So it's always limited, right? So at the end, they again generate afflictive emotions, and the afflictive emotions, and they connect to the certain karma, and again they bring down. They have to come down, fall back, and desire them. So, and then again, they also travel to helldowns. So helldom to the peak of this existence. They just go up and down all the time. So Paragab never chimbas. Yeah. There is no, without any interval, right? Without any without break, right? Without break. So number 4, and the sentient beings have a hard time to they lead themselves to the higher realm, right? Sentient beings have hard time to lead them to the God realm and the form realm and the formless realms, because it requires so much effort, so much discipline. So, and then going downwards is without any effort. Number 5, I better read here. Without any. Number 5, there are the 3 afflicted classes. Now, the afflicted classes within the 12 links of dependent originations: affliction of ignorance, craving, and appropriations; karma, namely relations and becoming; afflicted birth, namely the 7 remaining links, yet there is no fixed sequence to their originations. So afflicted emotions, right, and afflictions. So I think in Tibetan they use and from the Sanskrit they tell the Kunyomobans. Kunyomobans. Yeah, I think it's the so afflicted conditions means any truth of suffering. So all the origin of suffering, truth of suffering are afflicted conditions, afflictive condition, and afflictive emotions. Afflictive emotions like those, the mind, anger, attachment, jealousy, pride, those are afflictive emotions. The afflicting conditions. And then, so like a body, this feeling, this perceptions, all are afflicted condition, because it's caused by afflictive emotions, and this generates afflictive emotions. So that's why it's afflicting condition. So in this 12 links of dependent originations, affliction of, I think here and the translation, affliction of ignorance. So here the afflict the affliction of afflictive emotions, ignorance, craving, and grasping are within the 12 ling. There's a 3 afflictive emotions. 3 afflictive emotions: ignorance, craving, and grasping. And 2 afflicting karma. Right. So in the 12 links, the second the karma, and the 10th, the process of becoming. So right, second and the 10th is karma, and the rest, like name and form, contact, feeling, and birth, and aging and death, are the afflicting of how say it, birth. So which means that remaining links that without any yeah, let me drink this. So for example, here, 12 links of dependent originations, out of ignorance, committing the karma, that remain within the consciousness carries, and then next life, name and form, and faculties, and contact, feeling, craving, grasping, and the process of becoming, and again another life, birth, aging, and death, and not ends there. So right after the birth, and again out of ignorance, we're committing the karma, and then the consciousness carries that karma, and again name and form. So there is no how's that, beginning, and there's no end. It just kind of circle. So number 5 means circling. So there's no sequence in their originations. And also you have seen the picture in the wheel of the life. In the center, this is kind of, there's a anger, attachment, and ignorance, right? Bird, and has a snake and a pig. So each animal holds the tail of others, right? So that means there's no end, there's no beginning, the end. It just circles. Out of ignorance, we generate anger and attachment. So it's out of ignorance generate attachment. Attachments generates the anger. Anger again and generates the ignorance. So this kind of, and so on the daily basis, this world is assailed by the suffering of change, suffering of pervasive conditioning, and therefore this world is transmigrating beings. The world with transmigrating beings is nothing but condition akin to perpetually moving water wheel. So Chandrakirti imagining sentient beings like the buckets of the water wheel, because so bucket has no control, is controlled by the rope, right? The rope or the the person who set the set holds the rope, right? So the bucket is under the control of that the person who's kind of setting that who holds that rope. So like consciousness, right? This is like consciousness. Everywhere we go, and just because of out of habit, out of desire, we move, right? So out of a desire, right, we constantly moving, right, place to place. And then why this consciousness moves sentient beings so many times and everywhere, every moment. Why this consciousness not letting sentient beings still? Because this consciousness carries the karma and the afflictions. Right? So afflictive emotion is the karma that influence, impact on the consciousness. That's why the consciousness has to carry that sentient beings. Like the river that carries the whatever in that water. Right? So river has no control. Right? So yeah. So sentient beings, out of karma and ignorance, out of karma and ignorance, sentient consciousness carries the sentient being to the next life, and then name and form, contact, feeling, right, and craving and grasping. And when you die, right, when you die, again, it's not the end. Again, you will have to born again. So that means ignorance has already started another process, another chain of the dwellings. So one chain of dwellings that kind of, connect with another chain of dwellings, dependent originations. Now the point here is meditate on 12 links and dependent originations. Meditating on 12 dependent origination is the way to generate compassion towards the sentient beings. So I think, I've mentioned from the beginning when you start this, so the 12 links and dependent originations meditate and understands, right? Reflecting on 12 links and originations. This practice is also not only in the Bodhisattvas, in the Sharvaka and the Pratika Buddhas. So then the question is why the Sharvaka and the Pratika Buddha is not able to generate the great compassion. Why Bodhisattvas is generating compassion through the 12 links and dependent originations. So Pratika, Hinayana, Pratika Buddha, and Sharvaka also master in 12 links and dependent origination. So the first reason is Bodhisattvas meditate or contemplating on the 12 links and dependent origination, not only your own 12 links and dependent originations, 12 and dependent origination on others. Then still the questions remain the same. Does that mean Sharvaka and Pratika Buddha is not able to understand the 12 links and dependent origination of other? Don't they understand other sentient beings are in the cycle in 12 links and dependent originations? We say, yes, they understand that. Now, what is the lacking for the Sharvaka and the Pratika Buddha not being able to generate the compassion, the great compassion? So by reading this book, I found the term. So it says, endearment, endearment, sense of endearment. So before I used that, lovely love, right? So you won't be chamba, right? You won't be chamba, sense of kind of, liking, sense of, favorable, right? Sentient beings become so friendly, so dear, right? So there's that kind of lacking. Sense of endearment is the lacking in the Sharvaka and the Pratika Buddha. Bodhisattva have this sense of endearment. So this is why when they reflect upon 12 links and dependent origination on the other, they generate the great compassion. So Pratika Buddha and the Sharvaka, because it lacks the sense of endearment, so that's why even by reflecting on the 12 links to the dependent origination of the other, they are not able to generate the great compassion. So then the question is, how do you Bodhisattvas generate sense of endearment? Right. So, and then we think about normally how people have endearment, right? So you have sense of dearness towards your father, mother, sister, brother, right? And then almost it stops. And then you say sometimes friends, right? So kind of as long as friends, how's that, with good attitudes towards you, and then it becomes dear to you. So the endearment is because it's limited. So then we find, why so kind of dear, why you feel so dear to your brother and sister and friends, because it's my sister, my brother, my friends. Oh, this is how you really kind of including, right? Including, right? Including, and you now. So do you also dear to your car, my iPhone, my iPad? So there is some kind of sense of dearness on the car and house and plants and even knife, spoon, right? This is right. This is mine. This is my mother gave it to me. So I remember that my mother has a spoon. She always holds until she passed away, because she think this spoon and me the same age. So the first I born, my brother brought this spoon from the Switzerland, right? So at the same time I born, so she hold that spoon for. So there is some kind of, right? So it's important. So now, how do I really kind of develop sense of I on every sentient beings? So the Asanga's text, the technique or the method to generating sense of I and mine on every sentient beings, then say, contemplate in every sentient being had been your mother. So by contemplating every sentient beings, once they have been my mother, and they will be, right? Until you got enlightened. So you're always born from the sentient beings. So sentient beings is like your parents. Right? So that really includes every sentient beings kind of to closer to you, and you can develop sense of endearment towards sentient beings. So that's the one thing that's called 6 cause and 1 effect, right? Generating the enlightened mind, awakening mind. And the Manjushri to the Nagarjuna, Nagarjuna to the Shantidevas. And then they use, in order for generating endearment, sense of endearment towards all sentient beings, exchanging self to the others. Right? The first reason is every sentient beings possess the potential to be Buddha, and every suffering is caused by harming other. Every happiness is caused by benefiting others. Right? Then you say, oh, my 6 perfections. Say each perfections without sentient beings is impossible. So every sentient beings are the source. They are the field that I can, I can develop, I can, grow Buddhahood. I can, it says, harvest of the Buddhahood is without this field of the sentient beings, it is impossible. The sentient beings, the perfect field, right, to harvest the Buddhahood. So it's more than the mother. So sometimes people are so dear to mother when it comes to benefit, profit. So they, for a short time, they ignore, put aside, mothers, you just stay there. So I'll go and get this money. So here, the kind of Shantideva's kind of technique, every benefit that you want, every good quality that you want, so everything that is something that benefit to you is the source, is the main field in the sentient beings. So then automatically you care. People are so obsessed to the profit, they ignore their health, they ignore their food. So likewise, the Bodhisattvas, the intelligence, they can ignore themselves, their benefit, their food, and their clothing, and they're so kind of excited and so into the caring for the field of the sentient beings. This is from this I make the Buddhahood. From this I make myself intelligent. From this I perfect my generosity, patience. So the exchanging to the self to the others. Right? Why is exchange means before you have a habit, the caring, right? Taking care of yourself, ignore others. Now you more ignore here and you more take care of others. Like very enthusiastic, the businessman. So no breakfast okay, no lunch is okay, right? No sleep is okay. I want to make profit. So 1 month no sleep, okay, I can I can live with that. So I want to make this 1 million or 2 million. So in this way, those intelligent Bodhisattvas have this kind of attitude. So, and they find the sentient being is more than their life, right? More cherishable, more important, more precious than their own life. So, in this way, Manjushri to the Nagarjuna to the Shantidevas, and then they generate sense of endearment through exchanging self to the others. If someone kind of dispute on that, so in that case, exchanging self to the others like more like business, right? And then you can also say, yeah, 6 cause and effect through contemplating, through meditating with every sentient being had been my mother. This is also like business because their mother, they're kind to me, so I have to do something. If they haven't been kind to me, I may not respond that. So the kind of the essence is sense of endearment towards sentient beings. When you have this mental factors, and then contemplating the dwelling and origination of other, then that generate genuine the great compassion. Yeah.
Julie has a question.
Oh, Julie has a question. Okay. Can you talk more about compassion without reference or So this is called Mingme. Yeah. You know, Lama Tsongkapha is a Mingme Zebe Deshin Genesis. Right? They call Mingme Zebe Deshin Genesis. To make it over Jamaya. Kanji Kibes to the Tsongkapha, Losan Tradition, so on. Mingme Zebe Deshin Genesis. So compassion with no reference. Right? So Mingme Zebe Deshin Genesis. Our Logitishira, the Buddha compassion with his compassion is compassion with no reference. So this is the compassion towards the sentient being, that sentient beings also exist like a reflection of the image of the face. No particular locations could locatable in particular location, but it appears by depending on the factors. So that is no reference, compassion with no reference. So this is like, when you see the image of the face, right, and when you look at the mirror. So the image of the face, or the reflection of the face, is not part of the glass, it's not in there, right? It is not coming from somewhere else to the glass, right? After, when you left, this image is not going to anywhere. It's not part of the glass. It is also not part of your face. Your face is not entering in the glass. So the reflections happen to arise or appears when face and mirrors are together, and that creates the reflections. So in a similar way, sentient beings do not really exist intrinsically or inherent with body, feeling, perceptions, mental formations. And sentient beings also not exist apart from the body, feeling, perceptions, and mental formations. Not in there, not out there, but with this, there's an appearance of the sentient beings. So this is sentient beings like the reflection of the moon in the water. So this kind of sentient beings is the, you generate the sense of care, sense of endearment, right, towards these sentient beings. So totally compassion, totally free from attachment. I think, and I'm in English, so far there's a compassion, and sometimes we use empathy and mercies, right? In the Sanskrit word, there is a karuna, means it's kind of explicit or directly is linked to the feeling, right? Feeling. So ninja is feeling. Now the second, there is another level of similar to the compassion, anukampa, right? That in Tibetan terms with tujishimo. Tujishimo. Some people say great heart. So in Tibetan cultures, we say as thank you, we also Tujishe, right? You have a great mind. So Anukampa. So Anukampa is not necessarily is kind of not necessarily be a particular feeling. So it's sense of care, responsible, caring for other is Anukampa. So the compassion here is more to the feeling. It's some kind of you deliberately kind of brings that unbearable experience, right? By seeing or having understanding the suffering of others. It's more to the feeling. So Nyingje and Tujishimo, Anukampa and Karuna. Sometimes I feel like compassion is more like Anukampa. Empathy, the mercy is just more like feeling. Right? So, yeah. So it's always the words are controlled by the speakers. Who first speak says that this is as a karuna I use compassion. Now it's become the terms has no right to rebel. no protest. I think sense of care is not really necessary one particular feeling. Yeah, any questions? That's a COVID-19. So, the three principle of cause, three condition of cause, what it says, three principle of cause. So, compassion, wisdom, reality, emptiness, and enlightened mind. And the root of these three is compassion. And within the compassions, generally compassion, and compassion with phenomenal reality, compassion with no reference. So three compassion. So the Buddha's compassion is compassion with no reference. Because Buddha don't see any objective sentient beings, any intrinsic sentient beings.
That sounds not really how we use the word compassion. Compassion towards sentient beings is much easier to relate to than the term compassion towards phenomena. It seems like when you use the word compassion towards phenomena, that actually sounds like it has more to do with the realization of emptiness of phenomena.
No, the compassion, all compassion, every compassion is towards the sentient beings. Now, sentient beings, the first compassion is just merely focusing on the sentient beings. And second, the compassion is sentient beings with characteristic of the phenomenal reality, with impermanence. The third is still compassions, focusing on sensations. Number means number, the aspect of the compassion. Compassion, no reference, is still sentient being. But sentient beings with the characteristic of absence of intrinsic existence. Right? So, this is
But
kind
is
of
that phenomena?
Yeah.
I mean, is that what you're referring to as phenomena?
The reflection of the moon in the water and reflection of the moon that is, constantly moved by the kind of ripples, right? The wrinkles of the water, and a reflection of the moon that knows this is not real moon. This is just mere reflections. So all is focusing on is the moon, right? So these three compassions, the kind of the aspect of the compassions, what the main object, and main aspect is the compassion. Like a sentient being, and three compassions, sentient beings. The last compassion with no reference, means they seize the sentient beings, there's a compassion with sentient beings, but at the same time, this compassion is underpinned with another, the wisdom that is knowing these sentient beings not exist objectively.
So you're saying that there's still a sense of responsibility, even though you recognize that the phenomenon of sentient beings is not solidified, is not intrinsic.
Yeah, not necessarily. First compassion, second compassion is not necessarily understand the emptiness. So this is again. For example, if you are watching movie, the sad movie, right, and you have empathy towards the person who's playing in that kind of in the television or the theater, and right, and you develop a sense of compassion. Right. The second compassion says, this is just kind of constantly changes by the projectors. Right. It's sad. It's very emotional, but this whole people that I develop sense of compassion is coming through the projectors, right? And the third person says, I feel also sad about the movie, but I know this is all unreal. There's no sentient being at all on that screen. But every emotion, every kind of all of them is kind of has a sense of care, sense of endearment towards the sentient beings. Right? There's some people they don't really think about is real or not real. Right? They don't analyze. So just when you go to theater and watch a movie, they don't really analyze. They just kind of take everything what is kind of coming to your mind, you accept, and you get excited, you're emotional, you're sad, you're scared or anything. Right? And then sometimes you think, you analyze, right? Oh, these are all people that kind of playing they get the money to play this. So not that emotional. and then he says, there's no, it's just kind of, there is no one there. There's no one there on the screen, on the projectors, in the theater, there's no one there. But this appearance is real. So that kind of, different, different way of looking up on the appearance. So compassion, three compassions: compassion with sentient beings, compassion with phenomenal reality, compassion with no reference. All are compassion, all focusing on the sentient beings, right? So the different ways of looking, focusing on the sentient beings. some when you look at the mirrors, right? When you look at the mirrors, some people, if you are so beautiful, you may get jealous by seeing your face in the mirror. So there's someone who's more beautiful than me. So the second time you say, "Oh, this is my reflections." This is not real. So I think it's like, yeah, it's possible you may get jealous or you may get some kind of, and because you get scared by kind of watching the movie, you may get emotional by watching the movie, because that means you are seeing, you're believing this is really happening. So I bought the ticket to see that, right? What is that? Julius, yeah. So is the compassion without reference the same as awakening mind? No. Awakening mind, compassions are the two different things. Compassion here is kind of compassion is more with feeling. Awakening mind is focusing on the Buddhahood. Compassion is seeing the suffering of the sentient beings. Right? Enlightened mind or awakening mind is object of that. What is seeing, what is focusing on is the Buddhahood, awakening mind. Compassion is focusing on suffering of the sentient beings, suffering beings. So what drives you to focus or aspire, right? What drives you to aspire to attain Buddhahood? It's compassion that drives the Bodhisattva, moves the Bodhisattvas to focus on how to aspire to attaining the Buddhahood. So awakening mind, bodhicitta, is focusing on Buddhahood, not the suffering beings. Compassion is focusing on the suffering being. I think this is why the many times we use the alternate the terms, because sometimes you use awakening mind, sometimes bodhicitta, sometimes you say enlightened mind. So bodhicitta is more literally enlightened mind. Bodhi is enlightenment, chitta is a mind. Right? You are minding on attaining the Buddhahood. Right? So awakening mind, so it says in Tibetan, the terms many use, semkeva. Semke means sem means expanding this, expanding your mind. So how you expand your mind? So you expand your mind by focusing on the Buddhahood, right, as a goal, as the attainment, driven by the compassion. That's how you expand your mind. And what is the evidence? What is the kind of what is the evidence of that it has expanded? So it means because driven by compassions and aiming on the Buddhahood, that includes every sentient beings. That's how we know it has expanded.
Tsongkapha is a Bodhisattva.
Yeah. So in Tibetan, the different term is Changchu Sem Bodhicitta enlightened mind. Semke, awakening mind, expanding the mind. Right? So Chandrakirti is the kind of the main point, always trying to make kind of sense here is compassion. The great compassion is most important than the Bodhisattvas, than the Bodhicitta, then the wisdom realizing emptiness, then the Buddha, and the Sharvaka and Pratigya Buddha. So it looks like, and the farmers who sees, when they sees the seed, they kind of, there's so much value of the seed other than future harvest, right? So future harvest depend all on the seed, right? And then all the benefit or the profit by selling the harvest, rice and crops to the business, right? All this all depending on this seed. So the compassion, this is like the seed that you have right now. So this is more important than all this profit, all this future harvest. So this is Chandrakirti trying to kind of trying to make sense. The compassion is the only one that is the most important. Then the Bodhisattvas, Buddha and Sharvaka and Pratigya Buddha, even more important than wisdom realizing emptiness and bodhicitta. Yeah. Okay. Chanju semje rinpoche, majeba na geju, jeba nyamba meba nya, kone kondo pewash. Tonye tawa rinpoche, majeba na geju, jeba nyamba meba, kone kondo pewash. Pama simje tamje, dedan tenje. Ngendra tamje tata, tonwa da chanju semba, kanga suju. Teda kunyo molom joju ruchi, kare rawe kurwe shimas. Pendan dewa manin juwe, jere semba, tintin jato, shabe side badu tenje ruchi.
May the precious body mind not yet born arise and grow. May the born have no decline but increase forever. May the precious mind realizing emptiness not yet born arise and grow. may the born have no decline, but increase forever. Due to all these merits, all father and mother siblings have all the happiness. And may all lower realms
and
be
forever.
wherever there are bodhisattvas, may all their prayers be accomplished immediately. In the sacred land surrounded by snow mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. More powerful Chandrakirti angels, remain in this world until samsara ends.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Jalila.